let me then just start by thanking the organizers for the opportunity to be here, and also Rachel and Esther to helping this whole process of coming here. Thanks very much, and it's great to meet you. So let me give you a brief background of our institute first, and after which I'll outline some of our work on the poverty and its impact. The Indian Institute of Dalit Studies, or IIDS, located in the heart of India, is studying one of the most important issues that the state is also concerned with: persistence of extreme poverty amongst the marginalized group. IIDS was set up with the vision to help develop a socially inclusive society in its economy, polity, governance, and development. IIDS undertakes research on issues of poverty, provides policy inputs to the government, provides knowledge support to the civil society organization, functions as a resource center for academicians and researchers, and is engaged in setting up of a database on the most complex and challenging issue that confront the Indian society and also societies in different countries. Almost 60% of India's population suffer from some form of social exclusion and isolation due to their ascribed identity to a social group. Social groups are categorized on the basis of caste, ethnicity, gender, and religion. And amongst the social groups, the excluded groups include the former untouchables in the caste system, tribes, religious minorities such as Muslims and Christians, and women from the excluded groups who experience multiple deprivations due to their gender as well as their social identity. The former untouchables and tribes are protected groups in the Constitution of India, and there is an official schedule of caste that are former untouchables and tribes, referred to as scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, in short, SCs and STs. On the back of these provisions, government has enacted laws that ban untouchability and protects the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes against atrocities. Additionally, government have also provided reservation to these groups in employment, in education, and in political participation. Reservation in employment and education is, however, limited to the very small public sector, while the private sector, which is 95% of the economy, is excluded from these affirmative action. So in this presentation, I will present our work on the progress of the MDGs and for the excluded groups, factors of poverty, and the research impact, IIDS research impacts on policies of the government. The trend analysis of malnutrition and poverty in India between 1990s and 2010 indicate that there has been an improvement for all social groups, including the most excluded groups of the scheduled caste and tribes. However, you can see from the graph, the rate of improvement for SCs and STs has been lower than for the others, and therefore disparities have continued to persist. The human development indicators follow the same trend. There is a rate of improvement, but has been lower from the rest of the population. And this is true for infant mortality rates, maternal health, drinking water, access to drinking water, safe drinking water, toilets, and sanitation. However, the improvement in literacy rates for the SCs and STs has been more than the others, although dropout rates in the middle and high school continues to be high. So why is poverty high amongst the excluded groups and persist? At IIDS, we've studied the questions, these issues. While it is well known that lack of access to income-earning assets, lack of employment, education, participation in polity, and governance results in poverty. However, for the poor from the excluded groups, social identity is an additional aggravating factor for poverty in India. This relates to denial of equal access to rights, opportunities, and entitlements due to their social identity. For example, in the case of the scheduled caste, caste-based discrimination and untouchability results in complete exclusion or complete denial of from opportunities. Second, differential inclusion on unfair terms and conditions, and differential behavior that affects their dignity and results in humiliation. There is a recognition on the role of social exclusion, but we have very little idea, less idea on the forms, processes, and its consequences on deprivation of the excluded group. It is an under-researched area and neglected in the mainstream social science in India. There are, however, limited studies which provides us with evidence on evidence in market and non-market transactions on forms, processes, and consequences of social exclusion, and I will briefly present the findings from these studies conducted by the Indian Institute of Dalit Studies as well as other researchers in India. For our studies, we employ both quantitative and qualitative methods to study discrimination. Since discrimination operates through a network of social relation, it often takes form that are difficult to capture through quantitative questions and qualitative analysis. And qualitative analysis becomes really necessary in this process of collecting the data. Within the limitation of the data, the results provide useful insights into the nature of discriminatory working of various markets and non-market transactions. So coming to the market transaction, for example, in the study that we did when we looked at the scheduled caste farmers, from the farmers from the lower caste, we found that the discrimination takes various forms in seeking inputs and services necessary for undertaking production and in sale of products and consumer goods. For example, high caste persons regarded below their dignity to work for wages in the fields of the low caste landowners, or low caste farmers does not receive water for irrigation on time. Further, agricultural produce of scheduled caste farmer is considered to be polluted by the upper caste, which leads to limited market access for SC farmers in their own village. And that hence makes them rely mostly on local agents who can be exploitative, or rely on market outside the village where their identity is not known. This indicates that although the scheduled castes have access to various markets, it is characterized by restrictions and discriminatory behavior on the part of the higher caste or the dominant group persons. We also found that we also used the National Sample Survey data, where we find that the scheduled caste, the National Sample Survey covered around 52,000 rural households, 50,000 rural households, and spread over 6,000 villages. The analysis indicated that the upper caste farmers had 20% higher net income per hectare than the lower caste farmers. Lesser access to farm technology explains 63% of this difference. The remaining 37% remains unexplained and is attributed to discrimination in the form of discriminatory access to inputs such as irrigation, manure, labor, and the sale of the produce. In our study on caste and labor market, we found that the forms of discrimination were operational in hiring, in terms of in wages, and in terms of conditions of employment. Exclusion in the agricultural operations, from the agricultural operations, existed in denial of employment in harvesting of fruits and vegetables, exclusion in non-farm work, exclusion of untouchables in various types of household work, and lower participation of scheduled caste cooks in public employments, especially public employment at the village level in midday meal program, or also in various large-scale government programs, especially in the midday meal program. The study found a difference in employment days, in wage rates, and also in the payment interval, wage payment interval. In our urban labor market discrimination study, we employed the matched resume audit study, where we sent out 4,800 applications, and applicants with an SC name were on an average significantly less likely to have a positive application outcome than equally qualified applications with a higher caste names. In the non-market transactions where the goods are supplied through the government agencies, for example, in education, we undertook research on caste-based discrimination within classrooms and school premises. We found children being discriminated against mainly in class and at midday meal. I'm feeling a bit here. Now I found it. And at college level, higher education, we identified caste-based discrimination and unequal access to opportunities as key issues impacting lower caste students. Empirical studies show evidence of denial of access to excluded groups while accessing midday meal. Although there is high participation rate in the midday meal program of SC children, but it is under differential terms and conditions, unfair inclusion that manifests itself in insufficient quantities of food, separate seating arrangement, served from a contact-safe distance, children have to bring plates from home, being punished for asking to be served first, serving on plates made of leaves, and children not given responsibility. So even for identical groups, the likelihood of scheduled caste children being malnourished was 1.4 times higher than that of children from the general caste, the others, when controlled for income, education of the mother, health service, access to health services, and other variables. In terms of maternal health, there are differences in access to maternal health services between high caste women and the scheduled caste group. Scheduled caste mothers face problem in accessing services due to differential treatment, such as the health link worker does not visit their neighborhood, not all the time, but there were a high proportion of mothers said that the health link worker not visiting their neighborhood to give them information, not informing them about health meetings, while at the time of birth, cleaning the child themselves, or take a helper along to clean the child, and lack of transport facility at the time of birth to reach health facilities as compared to the rest. A higher proportion, what the data also tells us, a higher proportion of birth at home without trained attendant than the rest. Dalit women, a higher proportion of Dalit women give birth at home. They depend on private care. Out-of-pocket expenses to give birth in a health facility were higher for scheduled caste mothers as compared to the higher caste mothers. There were differences in longevity as measured by age at death. The average age of death of SC women at 39.5 years was nearly 15 years less than that of non-SC/ST women. Thus, evidence on market and non-market discrimination associated with caste and untouchability faced by the scheduled caste negatively affects transactional costs, negatively affects transactional outcomes for excluded groups in the market for goods and services. In non-market transaction, mainly public services, the excluded group also fared poorly on account of treatment from service providers that kept them from receiving a fair level of service. Parents from the scheduled caste group indicated that discriminatory treatment at school affects children's food intake and dignity, as they feel humiliated, lost interest in studies and in school itself. Forms of discrimination, of course, vary across the spheres, across the forms, across the areas of studies and other areas. There are changes, and they're not uniform, but these are the forms that have come out from the studies undertaken on market and non-market discrimination. So the causal analysis just mentioned indicated that discrimination faced by excluded groups in market and non-market transaction appear to be one of the reasons for slower improvement in indicators of human development and reasons for continuing disparities. Thus, Thus, a combination of anti-poverty policies, because there are common factors of poverty that even the excluded groups, poor from the excluded groups experience, a combination of anti-poverty policies and affirmative action policies to safeguard against discrimination for ensuring equitable access to market and non-market transaction. So that's the policy approach and policy recommendations from our study. The research of IIDS on poverty and education have had a positive policy influence and have contributed in the following policies of the government. The approach on the excluded groups, for the excluded groups in the 11th and the 12th five-year plan, where inclusive growth had become a very important agenda. Based on the studies in discrimination inside classroom and inside schools and inside in higher education, new regulations against discrimination in education, higher education institutions were developed, and we were a part of that process of developing that policy, which covers 7,000 universities, 40,000 colleges, and lakhs of schools. So there's a regulation that has been developed. We've been also working with the research training institution of the Government of India on sensitizing and training of teachers through modules and workshops. Administrative guidelines to village councils have been issued that monitor the anti-poverty programs at the grassroots, at the village level. We have been also engaged in the prohibition of employment of Manual Scavenging Act, and we have been providing research inputs to the grassroots NGOs which have been taking the Manual Scavenging Act, manual scavenging agenda forward and banning that employment. Strengthening the scheduled caste subplan and tribal subplan in the education sector, and also engaging with the private sector on promoting affirmative action in the education and in employment through scholarships and through skill trainings of the excluded groups of both scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. We've also been engaging with the UN and the international organization. The DFID policy of social exclusion and poverty, the research was contributed, IIDS research contributed to that policy, and a plan, a large civil society program was implemented, which works with the grassroots organizations as well as with the excluded communities. And in the implementation of the program, IID is a part of that consortium. The Government of India and the FAO country program framework for agriculture and rural development includes commitment on developing strategies for better access to input and output markets for the small and marginal farmers from disadvantaged groups, and mainstreaming disaggregation of data on caste-based parameters. The UNDP policy on inclusive growth strategy, the research was the research on inclusive growth and excluded group was sponsored by UNDP for us, and now it has helped develop a strategy in funding the Government of India. The World Bank policy on malnutrition. We wrote a policy brief for malnutrition on addressing unequal burden of malnutrition, and that is now is placed on the website and is kept for wider circulation. So we consider that as our impact. The MDGs post-2015 replacement efforts. We've we've been working with the consortiums, again, academic consortiums, and especially ODI. We've been engaged with ODI and have been a part of that consortium, and through our studies, we recommend combination of universal and affirmative action policies and making non-discrimination a right so that no one is left behind, and that no one is left behind is a very important commitment in the UN high-level panel report. So no one is left behind from achieving full development with dignity. We have a research to policy strategy. I will not go too much in detail because I've already explained. We work with the government, we work with the grassroots organizations, we work with the academia, we print through, we publish books, we print in the media, we print our research as op-eds, all and these are areas, these are stakeholders, and these are areas where there are opinion shapers. So opinion shapers are academia, media. So we engage with them. We engage with the grassroots, knowledge support to NGOs. And another important way of engaging with policymakers is membership in decision-making committees of the governments, of our government. These are some of our publications that we have done over the years. The challenges in India, and also I think in India especially, the research on social exclusion with so many groups in India, almost 60% of the population with their own unique group identity. It's an under-researched area in social sciences in India. There's limited existing theoretical, conceptual framework and methodologies to draw from, hence it takes time. Requires large sample size in field-based studies to unpack economic and social relations and processes. Research to policy influence impact is a long process and at times very difficult. There are, in committees, in meetings, there are consensus, there may be consensus on forms of discrimination, but disagreement on extent, reasons, and outcomes. So it is a difficult process, and at times it does become extremely, there's a lot of anxiety. But to evolve a fairer economic and social outcome for all, we need to ensure that the knowledge generated reaches the decision-making process, decision makers, and other relevant stakeholders. The challenge calls for continuous engagement, and we choose to never give up. Thank you.